Chapter 2, Haunted. I felt my stomach leap into my throat and grabbed Ned's arm so hard. He cut off his scream to say, "Ow!" "Oh my God," Bess screamed, reaching into her purse. "Get back. I'll get you with my pepper spray." If I hadn't been so frightened, I might have smiled. I've never seen Bess actually use pepper spray, but the threat is always her first line of defense. "Sorry," the figure said in a voice that's surprisingly young and female. "Dude, don't spray me. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to startle you guys." George angled the flashlight at the girl's face. It was a young girl, maybe 13 or 14 years old. She had blonde hair pulled back in a high ponytail and wide eyes. She was wearing a Chicago Bulls hoodie. "Well, you did," Bess said indignantly, pulling her hand out of her purse. "Sorry, I shouldn't have threatened you like that. But maybe don't sneak up on people in dark parking lots after seeing scary movies." I'm sorry, the girl said again. "You're right, I should have known better. It's just, I recognize you, Nancy." She turned to me, hope lighting her eyes. "You're Nancy Drew, aren't you? The sort of detective? You helped my cousin one time." I said, sort of caught off guard by my unexpected fame. "Sort of detective thing? You?" "Probably. I do investigate things sometimes." The girl looked pleased. "Great, that's great. Oh, I'm Willow, by the way. And again, I'm really sorry I scared you. We just saw the movie, and we were walking to the car, and I spotted you, and I was like, wait, we have to go over." "We?" Ned interrupted, as George moved the flashlight beam to the left and right. "Yeah," a deep voice and tone from the darkness, making us all jump about a foot in the air. "How many of you are there?" Bess asked the girl, looking nonplussed. "Just me and my brother," the girl said, and a slightly older boy with a mop of sandy hair stepped into the light, looking less than thrilled to be there. Hi," Ned said, giving him a pointed look. "Hi," he mumbled. "I'm Owen, her older brother." "So, why were you guys looking for me?" I asked, trying to hurry this along. I was feeling a little silly for getting so freaked out, though honestly I was just happy I hadn't peed myself. That was scary. "Well," Willow looked back at me, cringing a bit. "It's going to sound weird. Try me," I replied dryly. "I've seen a lot of weird things in my time solving mysteries." Willow glanced over at her brother, though she spoke to me. "I have maybe a mystery for you to solve?" I nodded. "Okay, tell me more." Willow raised her eyebrows and went on. "Do you guys know about the house on Heliotrope Lane?" "The house on Heliotrope Lane?" Bess asked, then giggled. "That sounds funny. Sounds like one of those old mystery stories. Do you remember the series with the yellow covers? No. What's the deal with the house on Heliotrope Lane?" I asked, cutting Bess off with an apologetic look. I'm ready to get to the point so I can go home to bed. I tried to tell her all this with my eyes. "It's haunted," Owen suddenly piped up. He was staring at his smartphone, shaggy hair covering his eyes. When he noticed us all turned to stare at him, he looked up. Allegedly, he added. "What does that mean?" I asked, turning back to Willa. She glanced at Owen hopefully, as if she thought he might help her explain, but he was lost in his phone again. "Well, the house was owned by this older lady, Mrs. Furstenberg," she said slowly. "She wasn't nice. She was kind of mean to the neighborhood kids, always shooing them off her lawn and yelling at them to be quiet at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And she had some crazy number of cats." "There's nothing wrong with cats," said Bess, who loved her ill-tempered cats, Mr. Checkers. Willa shrugged. "Sure, yeah, no, the cats weren't the problem. I'm sure she was nicer to the cats than she was to people. Anyway, she lived with her son, who was like middle-aged, Henry. Nobody really knew anything about him because he never talked to anyone. You would just see him in there sometimes, in the rocker in the front room." George caught my eye. "Creepy," she mouthed. "One day, a year or so ago, a neighbor heard a scream," Will went on, "and he went in to investigate. He found Mrs. Furstenberg dead in this little room in the basement. She'd had a heart attack." "Okay," I said. This all sounded unfortunate so far, but where was the mystery? "Henry disappeared that same day. The police looked for him a long time but never found him. That made them think maybe he knew something about her death." "Why?" I asked. "You said she died of a heart attack." Willa nodded. "Yes, that's what the doctor said, but the police thought maybe Henry did something to scare her, or they had an argument that brought on the attack. Anyway, when they couldn't find him, there was nothing they could do, so they just called her death an accident. She didn't leave a will, so the house has been empty ever since she died." A sudden flash of recognition lit in Bess's eyes. "Oh," she said, "maybe I had heard of this house from my neighbor Carrie." You said the house was haunted?" I asked, looking from Bess to Willa. "A lot of kids think so," Willa said. "And sometimes kids will sneak in there at night to give themselves a thrill." Ned cleared his throat. "That's a really bad idea," he said. "Yeah," I agreed, "for a lot of reasons, including but not limited to it being against the law." Willa looked down at the ground. "I know. We know. Kids know. But you know how it is. Kids do dumb things," Bess filled in. She glanced at me. "If this is the same house, Carrie swears she's never been there. She's only heard about it, but I have my doubts." I looked at Willa, who I was thinking looked a little more ashamed than having just heard about the house called for. "Willa, did you go to the house on Heliotrope Lane?" She didn't respond right away, so I turned to Owen. "Did you?" He scowled and nudged his sister. "Tell them, Willa. That's why we're here, right?" Willa sighed. "Yeah." She looked at me, her eyes huge and round. "I went a couple of weeks ago. My best friend Izzy wanted to go. She's not usually into that stuff, but we both like scary movies, and she thought maybe we could take some video, and it'd be like a scary documentary type thing, like Ghost Games. Do you guys know that movie? I heard of it, I said, not adding that I don't usually go to scary movies unless dragged there by my friends. Willa shrugged. Too bad she forgot to charge her phone. We didn't get any footage, but she looked across the parking lot, and suddenly something darker passed over her eyes. Fear. What happened? Bess prompted. Willa shook her head as if to clear it. We entered on the main floor of the house and looked around, and that was all fine. But then Izzy wanted to go to the basement. She looked at us again. That's where Mrs. Furstenberg's body was found. Like I told you, in this little room she had, it's where she died. I nodded. Right. Sounds scary. Yeah, Willa took a breath. I didn't want to go. I told Izzy no. I may like scary movies, but it was starting to feel like we were actually in one. Izzy really wanted to go down there, though. She took another breath. So I told her she could go alone. Okay, I said when she trailed off. What happened then? She was gone a really long time, Willa said. Like 15, 20 minutes. I was getting scared. I called down the stairs for her, but no one answered. Finally, I realized I had to go after her. I couldn't just leave her there. She paused. I was super freaked out, but I went downstairs. It was dark, and all I had was my flashlight. I was calling her name, and she didn't answer, but I thought I heard this sort of like moaning sound. Yikes, George murmured. Yeah, it was pretty scary, Will agreed. Finally, it was probably only a few minutes later, but it felt like hours. I found her alone in that little room in the basement, the one where they found Mrs. Furstenberg's body. Was she unconscious, I asked? Is that why she wasn't answering you? No, that's what's so weird, Willa replied. Izzy was conscious, but she was acting strange. She wouldn't say anything. She didn't even seem to recognize me. I was yelling at her because I was so mad she left me and wasn't answering, but it didn't seem to register at all. Finally, I just put my arm around her shoulders and started to lead her out of the house. Is that like her? Bess asked, being kind of quiet, introspective. Owen suddenly snorted. Not at all, he said. Izzy is the kind of girl who never stops talking. She's ruined so many movies and TV shows for me. She thinks every thought that pops into her head has to be shared. Willa frowned at him and he shrugged. Anyway, when she's around, nobody's getting any work done. I nodded. So what do you think was happening? I asked, turning back to Willa. I thought she was fooling around, she said, but she kept acting that way. We got on our bikes and started riding home, and she seemed to know the way and everything, but she still wasn't saying anything. Finally, when we were a block from Izzy's house, she laughed and made some silly joke about how cold it was. But what's so weird is when we started talking, I realized she had no memory of even going to the house. George let out a whistling sound. Weird, she said. Yeah, I agreed. But my sleuthing mind was already working, and it seemed like there could be a lot of different explanations. Maybe Izzy had hit her head in the basement. Maybe she was angry at Willa about something. Has she remembered it since? What's the story now? Willa's expression darkened. That's why I wanted to talk to you, she said. She never seemed to remember it, but I bugged her about it for a week, and eventually she was just like, fine, we went to that house. She said, still I get the feeling she thinks I'm making it up. It's hard to tell, though. It's been like 2 weeks, and Izzy's still been acting really weird. She's usually kind of funny and easygoing, but now she's super high-strung and gets really mad really easily. She'll get mad at me when I just act concerned about her. Like, hey, maybe you should calm down, and say I'm trying to control her, like trying to control her life. Our other friends have noticed the change in her. It said something to me, too, but I don't know if it's bad for them. Said Beth. Owen was looking at his sister, and then when she didn't continue, he nudged her again. Tell them why, he said. Willa sighed. Her downcast expression implying that she didn't want to tell this part. What's really freaky is... She's threatened to hurt me, she said. Hurt you? Bess asked. Like beat me up, Willa explained. With her fists, punch me, or kick me. Oh, I breathed, surprised. Has she ever done that? Willa shook her head. Never before this. I mean, she would never hurt me. We've been best friends forever. We're practically sisters. And even now, it's more of a threat. She said, like, stop doing that. Stop asking. Stop talking about that or I'll hit you. And I usually stop whatever I was doing because I don't want to know if she'd really do it. She paused, pulling her lips into a tight line and saying with a smaller voice, she scares me. I looked at Bess, George, and Ned. I hadn't come to the movies looking for a mystery to solve, but this was really strange and upsetting. Have her parents noticed, I asked? She's your age, right? She'd interact with them every day? Willa nodded, her ponytail bobbing. She does, but I really don't think it's happened in front of them. Even if it did, they'd probably just think it's normal teenage angst or something. No one gives teenagers any credit. Ain't that the truth, George said with a frown. Willa went on, her eyes shining in the dim light. I'm just really worried about her. No one else seems to see how dangerous she's getting. She's acting strangely, Owen spoke up, adding, she used to be kind of fluffy, goofy, but basically sweet. Now there's a sort of darkness to her. I'm not sure what's going on with her, but something is. I took in a deep breath. Strange, I said. Bess looked from Willa to me, cringing a bit as she asked awkwardly. I hate to say this, but could it be just normal teenage stuff? I mean, there's a lot of things going on when you're Willa's age, People change. It's not exactly unusual for a 13 or 14-year-old to start acting all emo. It's not emo, Willa insisted. It's dangerous. The real Izzy would never hurt me or anyone. She shook her head, frustrated, and went on. Look, I know how crazy this sounds. I know. I've been trying to figure out what to do about it. If I tell her parents, we'll get in trouble for going to the house in the first place. And probably nothing else will happen because, like I said, they'll call it teenage angst. I can't go to the police. It's not like she did anything wrong. And even if she had, I don't want her to get her sent to jail. I just want her back. I want to know whether she's okay. When Willa finished, there was a silence for a moment. She seemed 100% sincere, and I couldn't find fault with her concern for her friend. If Izzy was really acting strangely, there was probably more to this case than we knew. Maybe I could help get to the bottom of it. I sighed. We've worked haunted house cases before. There's probably a logical explanation, I said. And I saw Willa's face fall, so I quickly added, but I guess I can at least check it out. Just then a horrifying wail started up from the edge of the parking lot. Ooh, ooh, woo. I let out a scream so loud, if those ghosts were in fact dead, it should have woken them. And I wasn't alone. Beth shrieked and knelt down, like being closer to the ground would save her somehow. Her hand was deep in her purse, digging for her pepper spray, I guess. George laughed nervously, beaming her flashlight in the direction of the wail. Willa screamed, and no one jumped back. Ned grabbed my hand and started running a couple of steps backward towards the street. But before we could really get anywhere, two teenagers stepped into the flashlight beam and began cracking up. They were both wearing polo shirts embroidered with the Riverside Cinemas logo. Actually, I sort of remember the guy tearing our tickets. Sorry, the girl said, not looking sorry at all. That was just our fun way of telling you that we need to leave the parking lot immediately. We're closing up. Yeah, didn't mean to scare you so bad, the guy added, and then cracked up even harder. The girl joined in, and they scurried off toward a white Mini Cooper way at the edge of the parking lot. Bess turned to me. The blood just beginning to flow back into her face. You were saying, she said, time to go? Packed house awaits. I think I just need to go home and go to bed, I muttered, then remembered myself and smiled at Willa. I'll be in touch, okay? Can I get your contact information? Sure, Willa said, handing me a small piece of paper. There's my email and Owen's cell. I don't have my own phone yet, but he can find me if you need him to. Thanks. I took the paper and put it in my pocket, turning to Ned and my friends. Now let's get out of here. I think I've had enough thrills and chills to last me a lifetime. We began walking toward the car, and as we did, I heard Bess murmur under her breath, I think you just took the wrong case then.